1. Let me tell you about the grocery store man. Having left the office late, my friend and I commuted back to the town in which we lived. We were in our own vehicles, which comes in later. We had decided beforehand to stop off at the local supermarket for our tradition of checking out steaks and seeing if we could pick anything up decent for a good price. As usual, all the good ones had been taken, so my friend grabbed a couple of ingredients for spaghetti, and we checked out and left. Outside, we came to where our cars were parked. The parking lot was fairly deserted and our cars in a pretty open spot. A few spaces away, a running car was parked, and a middle-aged man was loudly speaking to a dog inside, commanding it to sit and stay. I didn't catch the dog's name. It didn't seem important. My friend and I were talking about the possibility of an office reunion, and we stood outside for a few moments, talking about the recent SNL opening hosted by Steve Carell. Finally, we parted ways and each got into our cars. My friend pulled away, and that's when the man talking to his dog made eye contact with me. "He's a good dog, military trained," the man shouted at me with a grin. Being of small-town custom, I returned the smile and shouted back, "Right on." Evidently, the man took this as an invitation to approach me. I'm not exactly the most welcoming or social person, so this wasn't very pleasant for me. Wanting to be polite, I listened to him explain that he was ex-military and had got the dog from the military. I kept the door of my car between him and I, and kept one foot in the car, which I hoped he would understand from my body language that I wanted to leave. I thought it was a bit odd that a middle-aged guy would just randomly approach a bigger guy in the parking lot of a grocery store. Instead, he explained to me that he was picking up a few things for a party he was having. He held his hand really close to my face and flashed a mini bottle of whiskey. "I've got a little bit of weed in the car," he explained with a grin, "and a bit of liquor for a good time." I nodded and said something along the lines of, "Sounds like a good time." He pointed at his car and explained that he had taken it from his ex. "That bitch never paid me for it," he claimed. "I've taken it to the sheriff and everything. They said it was a civil matter, so I'm in the clear. They're good guys, I know them all." I nodded along. I took a look at his pupils to check for severe constriction or dilation, but they didn't seem abnormal. The man still seemed high or manic or something. At this point, he thought it acceptable to show me that he was carrying a firearm. He lifted his coat right up and said, "Got a .38, 357 right here. It's got real power." I'm not really a stranger to guns, so this wasn't the kind of thing to freak me out. Overall, though, I was starting to get a strange feeling from the guy. He was clearly under the influence of something. I didn't want to stay any longer, so I explained that I had to get going. He nodded and said, "Well, here's my number, man. Give me a call. We should party or something." He held up his hand for a fist bump, which I accepted. He then listed off his cell phone number and told me to call. I told him his number back so I wouldn't have to grab my phone or look for a pen or anything. "I'll add you to my friends list, man," he said. "I got this great place with a pool and a sweet wood stove. You can come out and we can party. We make it all topless too, 18 plus only." Then he gave me a weird look. "How old are you, by the way?" "I'm 24. That sounds like fun, dude," I replied. "I'm a Christian, though, so I'm not too interested in that kind of stuff." Suddenly, his demeanor changed. "Oh, me too, friend," he said. "God saved me, and I got the spirit in me." He then proceeded to roll the sleeve of his left arm up and pointed to his arm. "My arm hair moves whenever the spirit is moving in me." He then pointed to a street lamp that had turned on. "I saw God once," he said. "It was like that orange glow everywhere, man." I nodded along and said my traditional "right on, man." This is my usual go-to for all conversations. He then asked my name. "Goat Falcon," I told him. "That's my son's name," he shouted. He then told me to call him, and I listed off his number again, assuring him that I would give him a call so I could leave. Stuffing the mini bottle of whiskey into his pocket, he explained, "All that stuff about partying, I really don't do it. I smoke a little weed here and there and drink sometimes, you know." I gave my usual "right on, man." I was distracted by a woman in a blue Jeep pulling up next to his car. "Good doggy," he shouted out as the woman got out of her car. "Good doggy. She's gonna get a treat." I thought the guy was talking about the woman. She also appeared rather uncomfortable, a feeling that I shared. "I love your car, ma'am," he shouted. "Go Michigan!" A Michigan football team that has blue as their primary color. I start to slide into my car when he grabs the sleeve of my sweatshirt. "Hey man, forgot to tell you. I was in the music video for Millionaire Son. You know, that Creedence song?" Of course, the song is actually named Fortunate Son. But I slide into my car as he explains how he was in the army during the Iran hostage crisis. I mention my grandfather was a Marine, which he then takes as an invitation to grab my shoulder and tell me about his personal rivalry with the Marine Corps. He then mentions he was a military driver with a trick to driving intoxicated. Finally, I get into my car and back out, eager to leave. I pull out of the store and out into the street, only to see that he's following me. Great. I had already dialed up my friend to explain the strange conversation. When I see this guy's car following me, I get into the other lane and pull into the lot of our local sheriff's station. He leaves me after pulling up alongside and honking several times. I didn't see him after that. My friend told me I should have called the cops. Thinking back on the guy telling me about carrying a gun with a ton of alcohol and weed, and driving a potentially stolen car, I think my friend was right. I'm a little bit socially unaware, so I didn't think back on it. Either way, grocery store guy, let's not meet. 2. This happened 2 years ago. My best friend and I, 19 female, decided to take an impromptu trip to Cuba at an all-inclusive for a week. All we wanted to do was sit on a beach. We didn't care for the nightlife or boys or anything other than the books we brought and the constant flow of rum. Everything was perfect. The resort was very, very remote, and was mostly villas in a large area. Everything is ground level with a little deck. We had the beach to ourselves apart from other guests, which mostly seemed to be Canadians and Europeans on holiday. My friend and I would periodically walk along the beach as you do on vacay. I remember noticing a man sitting alone, aggressively, if possible, staring at a woman wading in the water. We laughed thinking, what a fucking weirdo. On our walk back, he was still there, but was watching us as we approached. As we walked past him, he proceeded to ask, "Do you have the time?" First of all, does it look like I have the fucking time? I'm in a bathing suit. We replied, maybe 1:45. He said okay, and asked where we were from, blah blah blah, and proceeded to have a half-half convo with this 50-year-old German man. Now, I'm normally not rude. I'll engage in conversation like this and politely depart. My best friend will always do this, even more so, even going to the extent of showing interest. Bless her kind heart. But I feel as though this conversation triggered it all. We went back to our spot on the beach. A while later, we realized he'd moved near us. We thought, creep, but hey, it's a public place, we'll just ignore him. That night at dinner, I noticed him alone, staring from across the room. Once again, creep. We mentioned this man to an older couple we befriended, and they also brushed it off as creepy old man staring at young women. Our week went on, routinely seeing this man. He didn't seem to stare as much. Maybe someone had said something to him. Maybe he found someone else to stare at. Wrong, very, very wrong. We were having a drink and chatting in the common bar area, when we decided to call it a night, as tomorrow we were leaving. We began to walk back to our villa. It is a lovely, winding walk past all the other villas, but not well lit whatsoever. We got to the fork, where we turn right. When we see this man coming down the middle path towards us, he immediately changes his direction and cuts across the grass to follow us. Now, there is no reason he should be coming down this path following us, as it leads to only 4 villas, and we know he's not staying in either of them. We decided this was too creepy, and calmly took a detour onto another path that takes us back to the common area. He follows. We grab another drink to shake it off. The German man proceeded to sit down at a table facing away from us, and in the most nonchalant way ever begins to pick up his chair and rotate it every 10 to 15 seconds. We watched in literal horror as he'd made the last rotation to fully face us, just staring. We got up and went to the lobby bathroom, trying not to panic. Maybe we were overreacting. Maybe it was a coincidence. Oh, fuck no. When we walked out of the bathroom, he was sitting on the goddamn bench waiting. Our faces must have said it all as we made eye contact with him. My heart was in my throat. I was in awe. This shit only happens in movies, right? We bolted back to the main area. We told the bartender and a few staff, and all they kept saying was, "Yeah, he's sick in the head, he stares at everyone." Okay, not comforting. After 45 minutes of waiting, we never saw him. By then it was midnight, and we were so tired. We got a member of staff to walk us to our villa. All I could think was, what if he's watching what villa we go into? My anxiety was through the roof, plotting all the possible ways I could defend myself should something happen. That night we didn't sleep. Maybe 2 hours just waiting for the sun to come up. I only realized how scared I must have been when the morning came and we were on the porch. My jaw was killing me from clenching it due to stress all night, and my bathing suits I'd left out to dry were gone. But only the bottoms. We got our plane home that day. His face was still engraved in my memory. Sometimes I wonder if he was harmless and just creepy from a distance. But you know, I'm glad we didn't meet again. 3. A week or so had passed since the guy had lurked outside my house. I was busy working and didn't have much time for anything else, though I had the episode fresh in my mind every time I went to bed. The Friday after work I was going to have some friends over for food and game night, so I stopped by a store to get some groceries. As I stepped out of my car, I could see someone from the corner of my eye, mostly because this person had bright red and pink clothes on. As I turned to walk in, I saw him. He was on a bench looking at me with a smirk on his face. The chills I got there and then is indescribable. I walked as fast as I could into the store and grabbed the things I needed before I hurried back to my car. I couldn't see him anywhere until I left the parking lot. He was standing with his bike behind the building, peeking around the corner. As I passed him, our eyes met for a split second before I stepped on the gas to get away from there. That same night, after my guests had left, I went to bed and was laying in my bed checking my Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, the whole routine before going to sleep. I heard my cousin unlocking the front door before locking it, and I heard him walking upstairs to his apartment. At least I knew he was home and I could finally go to sleep. I must have been half asleep, half awake when I heard someone knocking on one of the windows in my living room. My heart was beating so fast in my chest and I froze. It quickly went from knocking to pounding. I was sure this person would break the window. Of course, the first thought that hit me was that the same guy was back. He had seen me at the store and now he was back to terrorize me some more. Then the knocking moved to my bedroom window. While knocking, he started shouting, "Open up, I know you're home." I was so scared I can't even describe how scared I was. He repeated the sentence while slamming his hands against the window. I'm not too religious, but at that moment I was praying to all kinds of gods. I slowly picked up my phone, about to call my cousin, when my cousin texted me. "Just pretend that you're not there and he'll go away," is what he wrote. That is when I understood that the guy that was out there was there for my cousin, which meant that my cousin would have met him at the local bar or wherever he had been. I wrote back a short FU to my cousin. The guy outside my window, however, just kept going. He knocked on all my windows and rang my doorbell for about 10 or 15 minutes before it got quiet. I went out to the kitchen in time to see him leave, and when he was under the streetlight, I could see that it had been the brother of the first guy. The day after, my cousin told me that he had met him at a party, and they had argued and he had followed him home. I do believe that my cousin was lying, though. My cousin has an on and off relationship with drugs, and this was a period when he was on. My guess is that he had gotten some drugs from the guy that he didn't want to pay the whole amount of it. What happened the day after makes me even more sure about this, because the same afternoon he was back, he rang the doorbell and I opened it. And it was after I opened it, I knew who it was, or else I probably wouldn't have opened. He asked for my cousin. He said my cousin owed him something. I told him my cousin lived upstairs and that he had his own doorbell. I also knew my cousin had just left, so I told him this. Before he left, I got tougher than I have ever been before or since. I took a deep breath before I let him know that it was not nice to knock on people's windows during the night, and that he had scared me. He actually said he was sorry and that he wouldn't do it again. Fast forward 2 weeks. I was out on my daily run with music in my ears and not really thinking about much, or not really paying attention to anything but the road in front of me, when I had to stop to tie my shoelaces. As I got up, I could see the guy from the first night standing at the top of a hill with his bike, and he was looking at me. I got back up and started running again, but this time I looked over my shoulder, and to my surprise, he was already getting closer to me. I took a route where I knew there would be more people, but that was a bit longer. After changing directions, I looked over my shoulder again, and he was even closer. I begged that I would see someone I knew so I could stop and talk to them and let him pass. But when he was right behind me, I had still not seen anyone. However, I saw a man out walking his dog and stopped in front of them. I said I thought his dog was cute, and he let me pet it. The guy passed us on his bike, but I could see that he kept looking at me over his shoulder. All the while he had that crazy smirk on his face. The man with the dog asked if I was okay. I didn't want to sound paranoid, so I just said yes. I couldn't see the stalker or his bike anywhere, but I still decided to run back and take my originally planned route. I was almost at home when I spotted him at a bus stop, leaned over his bike looking down on what was probably his phone. I crossed the street and looked over my shoulder to see if he saw me. I thought I had made it home unnoticed. Still, I locked the door behind me as soon as I was inside at home. But when I was in the kitchen getting something to drink, I could see him on his bike slowly moving past my driveway, looking up at my house, before disappearing behind some trees. I went and took a shower, and after, I was just going to relax and click around on the web. I started by checking my Facebook. I could see that I had a new friend request and clicked on it. Guess who? Yep, him. I have no idea how he found my name or my Facebook. But I live in a small town. It wouldn't have taken him much time to find out who I am. He might even have read it on my mailbox. I did not add him as a friend, though. A couple of days later, while I was at work, I get messages on my messenger. It said that someone had asked to send me a message. When I opened up, there was his name again. I clicked on decline. No way, dude. He tried to get in contact with me over Messenger for about a week, and I blocked him. After this, I one day came home to a note on my door. It said, "Add me on Facebook," and his first name and a made-up last name. I think it was Bond or something like that. I saved the note and then handed it over to the police when the stalking got a bit too much. His brother never came back to the house, but one time the both of them were walking behind me when I was out walking with some friends, just looking at us. His brother also once asked me why I didn't want to add them on Facebook, and why I didn't talk to his brother. I never replied to any one of them. I finally got my cousin to tell them to chill on the stalking. This is when it went from bad to worse, with daily visits from at least one of them, but mostly the first guy. I think the brother might have showed up to where I was like 3 times. The first visitor started hanging around outside my office, gym, house, anywhere I was really. It got really intense. Of course, I started telling more people about this, and all of them told me to contact the police, which I did. I gave them the note and messenger messages. I told them about the stalking and said I had witnesses. They promised me that they would keep an eye on him and told me that it was not his first time doing these things. That didn't calm me at all. Why couldn't they just get him to get some help? So this stalking that he did went on for another month, and it seemed like he just enjoyed the attention the police gave him. Because the days when they told him to stop, he just came back an extra time. Finally, my fiancée came home from work, and the two of us was out at a restaurant eating one night. I had of course told him about the stalking. We were about to leave when we saw the guy standing outside the restaurant. My fiancée went straight out the door and over to him. I didn't hear everything that was said, but I heard my fiancé telling the guy that he would put his foot up somewhere. After that, I only saw the guy stalking me like 3 times. My fiancé is a strong dude, but I don't know if it was that or if the guy just finally gave up or what. I just hoped it would stay that way even after my fiancé left for work. Fortunately, it did. I've seen the 2 brothers around town since, but I hope I never meet them again. Let's not meet, guys. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 350. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Just realizing we'll be in December by the time this video goes up. Alright, well, I don't have to do a lot of shopping for Christmas. I really just need to get a couple of little gift card thingies, like money wallets for my niece and nephew. They're both at the age now where it's just, money. I don't need to go shopping for presents, which makes things a little bit easier, I suppose. Now begins the weeks-long debate where I decide whether or not I actually want to put my Christmas decorations up. Of course, if I put them up, then I'll just have to take them back down again later, so I probably won't bother. A lot of hassle just for me. Well, okay, with that I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.